Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic. What was the biggest bullet you dodged? Didn't lend money to a friend because I was broke. Few months later he disappeared with several thousands he had stolen from my other friends. You know, it's funny. I was debating this with a friend. He needed a little extra cash to buy a car because the one he was currently driving was legit unsafe. He said he needed about $1,200. We play Magic the Gathering, EDH, every weekend and he has a deck worth about 2 Kelvin. I've talked to him about spending his spending on that deck, but that's a discussion for a different time. I'm basically acting like a pawn shop right now. I gave him 1,200 cash and he gave me the 2 Kelvin deck. As soon as he pays my back he'll get the deck back. It's better than him selling the deck that he spent a lot of time and money on, all to get pretty much the same amount. This way he'll still have the deck at the end. This was back around Halloween and I already have $700 back. Edit, well shit, that's the most karma I've gotten, thanks. Remember today you, tomorrow me. I hope that if I ever get into a bad situation, he can be there for me as I am for him. For those asking for a deck list. I felt a list wouldn't do it justice, and I was too lazy to type it all out. So I took pictures of the deck so you can see the promos and alt art. That's a good way of handling it. I had a cardiac arrest about 4 years ago. Dropped dead-ish, in the middle of my shift. Found out after I woke up about a week later that the manager who saw me fall was a former lifeguard and knew proper CPR. B. An ambulance happened to be passing about 2 blocks away. C. Probably the best cardio unit in my state was a 10-minute ambulance ride from where it all happened. Walked out of the hospital about 2 weeks later, full recovery. Just before starting HS, I got hit by a car doing 35 miles per hour, while riding my bike. T-boned. My bike went under the car, I was thrown up, smashed the windshield out with my back, was flipped over the car, and landed a perfect no-hop landing, on my feet, like a gymnast, minus the arms raised flourish at the end. The entire accident was witnessed by a firefighter who was watching out his window, literally standing right next to his emergency radio, and called for an ambulance. The lady who hit me got out of her car, yelling, I'm a nurse, lie down. I had no breaks or fractures, just a bruised rib cage. Holy shit. That's incredible. I can't tell you how many patients I've cared for who have become paraplegics or quadriplegics after being hit by a car going 35 miles per hour or even less. I'm so glad you landed on your feet, literally lol. I'm glad you're all right. After his recovery he got back to work poisoning the local water supply. Was going to move to a different apartment complex last month, got injured at work and lost hours, therefore, couldn't come up with the deposit money in time. Last week some asshat was cooking meth and caught the building on fire. Edit, my username, my current apartment complex is notorious in my city for having elevator troubles, so in reality, username does check out. Also, you could say I dodged 2 bullets. 1. The fire. 2. I know bad stuff happens everywhere blah blah blah, but the new place really didn't strike me as the kind of place where meth heads live. So I guess avoiding those kind of people for neighbors was dodging a bullet in itself. Thank God username doesn't check out. Edit, I am but a simple yam, thank you all for the awards. Not changing jobs in early 2020. Would have been a short-lived promotion after early restructuring and layoffs. I changed jobs March 9, 2020. 2 days later my city shut down and everyone was sent to work from home. My new company committed to zero COVID layoffs. The company I left, laid off about 80% of my department. Dodged a bullet, haha. Same thing, mine committed to zero COVID layoffs. Apparently restructuring layoffs were fair game though. In 1992 I was 16. A bunch of us were about to leave a party and I called shotgun. But, my friend Pat kind of wrestled me out of the spot and I wound up jumping in another car since the first car was now full. The other driver and I watched as our friend's car skidded into oncoming traffic. Pat was airlifted to the local trauma hospital where his dad told a huge group of us teenagers that Pat had succumbed to his injuries. Maybe that's not exactly bullet dodged, but... Edit, I guess this is what people mean by a comment blowing up. Pat's driver and my driver were racing each other. The road had just been paved and the shoulder was loose gravel. So when Pat's driver applied their brakes when the passenger side of the car was over the line on the right side of the #2 lane, the passenger tires kept spinning while the driver's side locked up, spinning the car into an oncoming pickup. The oncoming driver was hospitalized and recovered. Pat's driver broke a femur, was convicted of vehicular manslaughter, sentenced to home detention, but was late to get home from high school one day which tripped the ankle monitor and the driver did 30 days. The 3 kids in the back had to be extracted by the jaws of life, broke some bones, got an insurance settlement. However, I don't think I would have died if I got shotgun. We would have left 15 seconds earlier and we wouldn't have hit that oncoming pickup. Or maybe we would have. Similar story, I was going out with my mom and sister when I was in about middle school. I always sat in the passenger side back seat if it was more than me and the driver. My sister decided at the last second that she would stay home, and we got T-boned on the way home in a hit and run. The other car totaled our car, with all the damage on the back passenger seat, where I should have been sitting. I still think about that often. I prefer the driver's side, with the assumption that the driver will be more aware of and responsive to threats on the same side. That thought has guided the placement of the car seat for my kids' entire life. Edit, I think it will save everybody some time to let you know that there are 7 Twitch comments so far, with 2 of them linking the video clip. When my great aunt passed away I was helping to clean out her house. I'm just dragging everything out of the basement and suddenly my dad is like, whoa. Put that down gently and let's move away from here. So I put the weird metal tube type thing I'm carrying down and get out of there. Turns out it's a mortar shell from when my aunt worked in a munitions factory during World War II. Bomb squad came and took it away. I'm just casually going to take a mortar from work, no problem at all, as you do. Did you ever hear back from the bomb squad about whether or not it was still active? If they took it rather than safely detonating it, I would imagine it was almost certainly inactive, unless there's more to this story than OP is letting on. Not me, but I had a field service engineer working on one of my big robotic liquid handlers. He decided to bypass the safety pin that prevents the heads from moving while the cover is open while he had a diagnostic program queued up on the computer. What he didn't know was that the instant he reinserted the safety pin the machine would execute the queued instructions and start moving, and he had a hand inside it right in the danger zone. I grabbed his shoulder and yanked his hand out an instant before it was crushed. He stopped ignoring me when I told him to stop bypassing safety lockouts to save a few minutes. Well, I'm sure this guy isn't completely responsible for you guys putting a safety system in place, but it sounds like he certainly had a hand in it. I stayed up all night before a day trip to Hong Kong. You know that days when you haven't slept, you're just kinda robotic and doing the human stuff, nearly zero awareness of anything. Well, I went to cross a street and my friend behind me snatched my shoulder and yanked me backwards just in time to feel the whoosh of a double-decker bus breezing past us. I just looked at him like, oh, thanks man, and it took a whole extra minute for my brain to process I would be fucked it had he not grabbed me. I think I saved a baby's life once. It was in a city center, crossing a main road with a wild bunch of other people. The dad was pulling the pram behind him onto the pavement while he texted on his phone, and the dumb fuck didn't realize he'd left the pram just there on the road while he himself was on the pavement. Everyone kinda ignored it while the traffic lights kept that section of road clear, but then the lights changed and the fucking moron still hadn't looked up from his phone while a huge double-decker was bearing down on his offspring. Out of the whole crowd I was the only one to push forward and pull the pram onto the pavement. The complete imbecile gave a grunt of surprise and dropped his phone as the bus whooshed past and he realized he'd utterly failed in his parenting responsibilities, which was some consolation. I hope it shattered. Thanks y'all for the praise, I don't feel good about the situation though, just seething fury. And to those who told me I should have let the baby die, go eat a takeaway bag of shit on your way to a therapist. About why the bus driver didn't stop I honestly have no idea. There were a few seconds between me pulling the pram back and my memory of the bus going by. Maybe he realized it would be fine. Or maybe he was driving automatically and hadn't noticed. Whatever, I'm just glad I didn't have to see a baby die painfully that day. Forget the phone shattering, I'd hope he reflects on that moment often. Well, about 15 years ago I dated a guy for less than a year. It was an awful, abusive relationship and I was happy to get out of it when I did. About 8 to 9 years ago, I saw him on the news. He strangled his girlfriend to death. He then dismembered her and lived with her body for a month or so before he was caught. Edit, wow. Thank you for all of the awards. I've actually written about this before on Askreddit under Have You Dated a Serial Killer? Question. Here was my answer, which gives a bit more detail on it. Not a serial killer, but I dated a killer. He was not a killer at the time. We were young, and met on a dating website. He went to my high school but graduated a few years before me. The first month was okay. Then he changed. We had a huge fight one time because he said something silly. I don't even remember what it was, but I playfully threw a pillow at him. He immediately flipped out, punched a hole in my door and told me he'd make it so I would never have anything to come back to. Another time, he finally got a job. Didn't have one when I met him and I was paying for everything. After job searching for months, he got one. It's his first few days at his new job, and all of a sudden he doesn't want to go in. No reason, he just doesn't feel like it. I tell him he better get to that damn job or he's going to lose it. After a lot of arguing, he gets ready and we both get in the car so I can drive him to work. As I'm driving, it gets more heated and he starts strangling me while I'm at a red light. The red light was right next to a gas station and I pull in there while his hands are around my throat. I manage to get him off me and I get out of the car and scream, "What the fuck? I'm sorry. I blacked out. You just pissed me off so much. I told you I didn't want to go to work." The relationship lasted less than a year. He cheated on me with some girl, and for the first and only time in my life, I was glad someone was cheating on me. You can go live with her and be someone else's problem now. Then years later when I saw him on the news, I felt really bad for that thought. He had handcuffed his then girlfriend, who had just had his baby, to the bed, and strangled her to death. He thought she had cheated on him. He then dismembered her body and lived with it for a month in their apartment. Eventually, the smell tipped some people off along with his GF not being seen by family in a bit. The baby was okay though and was taken in by the girl's family. He went on the run, but was later caught and is currently in prison. No news article though. I have posted a news article with it before and got banned. Hopefully with all the info I gave you, plus someone guessed the state below, you can find it for yourself so I don't get banned again for posting personal information by posting a public news article. Lol. Similar situation, but he had kids with another woman and ended up murdering their kids and tried killing her. He also robbed a ton of old people and now he's in jail for life. Bullet dodged.